Bruce. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day. And we're here in sunny Buffalo, New York to discuss some books and ephemera related to the McKinley assassination. Now, this is the third buy day I've done related to assassinations. I'll put the others in the link below, but we had a great one. I think our most viewed buy day of all time is our Lee Harvey Oswald episode. And we also had an episode on Garfield. But today, we're going to talk about McKinley. And if you zoom in on the boulder here, Kathy, you will see that that is almost all that remains of the Great Pan American Exposition of 1901, which was a World's Fair held here in Buffalo, New York, which is why McKinley was here. And it is where, at this stone, the Temple of Music used to be. And the Temple of Music was one of the buildings where McKinley had a greeting line and was shot by an anarchist by the name of Leon Czolgosz. And we're going to start with something optimistic, though. This is something which came out before McKinley was assassinated and is something that we have in our sheet music collection at the Scholar. And it would have been played at the Temple of Music right here on this spot over 100 years ago. And that is the triumphant second inaugural McKinley and Roosevelt March.
Wow.
Now, it's all instrumental, so we can't get too far. Now, I told you we have a lot of sheet music of the Scholar. I like this one a lot because it shows just how young Teddy Roosevelt was. He's going to become the youngest president in American history at the time, but he also was a very young governor of New York and was chosen for his vigor. The McKinley-Roosevelt March is very patriotic, and it's quite an interesting piece. And on the back, I'll just show you this. They advertise John Philip Sousa Girl, which is, I think, pretty good because Sousa was the one who had a concert right here at the Temple of Music before McKinley arrived, which is pretty interesting. We've got some cars passing by. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is that we are in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and that's because all the buildings of the Pan American Exposition were demolished except one, which is currently the Buffalo History Museum, and that's where we just were. And we have a little guest appearance from my brother here, at least off camera. David, what do you think about the Buffalo History Museum?
Fantastic. Could have spent more time there. Need to go back. Not enough McKinley.
Not enough McKinley. And it is a little bit amusing. The Buffalo History Museum has more information devoted to O.J. Simpson than it does William McKinley. But the William McKinley information that it does have is very interesting. First of all, we got a chance to see the pistol, which was used in the assassination, which is not bigger than my hand, which is rather remarkable. And we also saw the handkerchief that it was concealed in, and it was a greeting line. McKinley was a man of the people. He wanted to get right up close with all of his admirers. And he was shot by an anarchist who was following the directions and wishes of Emma Goldman. And Emma Goldman was actually arrested as part of the conspiracy for the assassination, but never formally charged. Let me show you a very interesting set of books that we have at the Scholar, which are two books that came out right after the McKinley assassination. And we are fortunate because I actually have with me two competing memorial editions of the life of William McKinley, one being the authentic life of President McKinley and the other being the illustrious life of William McKinley. And what makes these books interesting is that these are both salesman's dummies, Kathy, which were designed to be carried door to door in neighborhoods like these to sell the book. And you would print some representative pages of the book, but you would also print what the spine of the book would look like. What do you think? Which spine do you like best?
I don't know. I like the color, but I like the classic golden brown.
Okay, well, if you open up the books, you can learn a lot about the books. You get a little sense of McKinley. There he is. But each of the books has in it an order form that the traveling salesman would take, and these are not filled out, so neither of these books sold particularly well. But I will tell you this, the illustrious life of William McKinley in the standard binding was only $1.50, and in the deluxe binding was $2.25. And this one here, just to show you by comparison, I would like to show you that it's, and this is right before the order form, it was $1.50 and only $2 for the deluxe. So which one do you think sold better? Well, it was, in fact, yes, The Authentic Life of William McKinley. Now, David actually read us some passages from this book. He has a copy of the book. It was very commonly printed. and they really liked William McKinley. One of the things that we also have at the Scholar, and this is in our ephemera section, is we actually have a program of the memorial service for William McKinley that happened in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is right near the Scholar, back in 1901, which is pretty interesting. And among other things, this is an annotated copy of this very rare memorial service program. It talks about the order of service. You can see who was speaking and who was singing. You've got the president of Dickinson College. You've got other luminaries that you would have in Pennsylvania, but you also have William McKinley's favorite hymn. Do you see there under the invocation?
Yeah.
Do you see what hymn it is? Can you read that? Well,
lead kindly.
it's
Oh, there it
Lead
is.
Kindly Light, which was also produced in the illustrious light. This was a time when you still knew the most favorite hymn of American presidents, and that was McKinley's. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the Pan American Exposition is that the buildings were made not to survive. They were made out of plaster, and they were all demolished shortly thereafter, which is why we're in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And if you bought stock in the exhibition, as we learned at the Buffalo
Just
History
$10.
Museum, you would have lost a lot of money. But after the exposition, this neighborhood was developed, and they did recoup some of their losses by selling farmland and turning it into neighborhood streets. But this is all that remains: the flagpole and the books. Now, I want to tell one other story that was briefly represented in the museum. Oh, well, let me just say that there is one building that is still surviving, and that is the Buffalo History Museum where we were. So you can still get a sense of it. They've got a lot of information about the exhibition. And one of the things that I learned from the tour guide, Kathy, is that people in the neighborhood, whenever they like dig a garden or a new foundation for something, are constantly digging up pieces of the old, because a lot of it was just clean filled. It was buried in the ground. And somebody just 15 years ago in their backyard as a tool shed realized that they had a copy of an original ticket booth from the Pan American Exposition, which is now at the Buffalo History Museum, not yet on display, but means that there are two structures still standing at the Buffalo History Museum. All right, we are going to tell one more story, and that is the story of a doctor, Buffalo's most famous doctor, and his name was Roswell Park. Now, there's a small plaque to Roswell Park at the Buffalo History Museum. He was a professor of surgery. He was the most famous American surgeon at the time.
Trauma surgery.
Really since Thomas Mutter. And I'll refer you to the by day we did at the Mutter Museum. But Roswell Park was not only a surgeon, but he had great experience dealing with gunshot wounds and other traumatic injuries. But at the time McKinley was shot, although he was the chief surgeon for the Pan American Games, he was actually in Niagara Falls performing a surgery on another patient, a lymphoma patient, a neck surgery. And the story goes that they got the message into the operating room where he was already prepped for surgery, and they said, Dr. Park, you're needed in Buffalo immediately. He said, I don't care. I am in the middle of surgery, and I won't stop even if it's the President of the United States. And then the voice said, well, sir, it is the President of the United States. Park finished the surgery and then got on a special train, which held the world record for speed from Niagara Falls to Buffalo, the same drive we just did, Kathy, and arrived at the exposition hospital where McKinley was already under the knife, so he could not perform the surgery. Unfortunately, they had found the only doctor they could find who was not a trauma surgeon, but rather a gynecologist. And he had opened up McKinley and was unable to find the bullet. The assassin had shot 2 bullets, one of which was still in McKinley's coat, just grazed him, but the other one was somewhere in his abdomen. Since Park didn't arrive in time, he didn't actually participate in the surgery, and the surgeon who did not only didn't find the bullet, but also didn't properly seal the wound. And, well, what happened was about 8 or 9 days later, McKinley died from infection. And you can see some of the gruesome instruments, including the scalpel and the bullet probe that were used in the surgery. Just one word about this book, Kathy. It's an interesting book because this is after the McKinley assassination. Somebody from the Buffalo area put in Park's obituary. You can see here He was one of 4 physicians who attended President William McKinley. Luckily, the physicians were mostly vilified for helping cause McKinley's death. So Roswell Park was not, because he didn't arrive in time. But if you look at the book, it's a very interesting book because it's about the occult and it's about thanatology. You know what thanatology is? It is the scientific study of death. So Roswell Park was a very interesting lecturer, a very interesting guy, and he spent the rest of his life telling that story, as well as other stories, including in this book, The Evil Eye, available at the Midtown Scholar. So that'll do it for Buy Day this week. We don't have a funny book this week because I can't really top the Lego Assassinations book that we did as part of the Kennedy Assassination Buy Day, so watch that if you want a funny book. Instead, we'll play you out with a little bit of Stephen Sondheim and a few photos related to the McKinley assassination from the Buffalo History Museum. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll watch next Friday and every Friday at noon for more adventures in the world of books.
Gosh, working man, born in the middle of Michigan, woke with a thought and away he ran to the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, Saw all of a sudden how things were run, said time's a waste and it's 1901. Some men have everything and some have none, so rise and shine. In the USA you can work your way to the head of the line.
Single line, ladies and gentlemen. Line forms here to meet the President of the United States. Single line to shake hands with President William McKinley.
Gosh, quiet man, worked out a quiet and simple plan. Stroll of a morning all spick and span to the Temple of Music by the Tower of Light at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, Saw Bill McKinley there in the sun. Heard Bill McKinley say, folks have fun.